Hey, Chubbies. Tonight's show brought to you by the Kelly Wiley Realty of the Keller Williams Capital Partners. You ever sitting around the house, you and your spouse, and you're like, man, this house is just, it's getting too small. The walls are closing in, and man, I'm ready for a bigger place. I need a bigger house. I wonder how much I could get out of this one. Wonder what projects I need to do. You ever think, man, hey, kids is gone. I'm ready. I need a smaller place. I don't want as much to take care of, you know. Well, I'll tell you what to do whenever that thought comes in your mind and you got some unanswered questions and you want to know, like, hey, how much is this house worth? How much is that house worth that I'd like to buy? You know, what projects can I do to increase the value of my house? Well, call Kelly Wiley Realty of the Keller Williams Capital Partners. Give them a call at 577-3795. I'm going to tell it to you again. That's area code 740-577-3795. Let Kelly Wiley Realty help you on your house journey. Welcome back, round two.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
And we've got a stand-in Chubby. Mr. Matt Jenkins is here for in lieu of Chad.
Yes.
Yes, Big CR is on he's in the...
I'm coming around as a Chubby, too.
Are you?
I think I've not run for a few months.
Yeah. We'll convert you.
I'm down with this arm issue. I put on a few pounds.
Yeah.
That's what's behind this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or you secretly, you set me up to...
It is now. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
It's a subtle hint, but, you know, it's all for your betterment.
I got some 3X's back there.
Excellent.
You kicking the ball around anymore? Or?
No, but I blew a pants off a pair of khakis today.
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
or a button, sorry.
Blew
Blew
a
a button off
Oh,
a pair of khakis. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I bet you're miserable, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I mean...
I haven't kicked a soccer ball around for the better part of 8 years.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
It's been a while then.
You?
It's been, several years, 2 or 3, maybe 4 years. I was playing, and when I was in school, you know, I was in a big city. They had to pick up soccer at the fields with all the, you know, randos.
Yeah.
And, you know, but you got to be careful at our age, you know, they'd be checking you, they giving you that check, and you're like, oh, now I'm going to, like, limp for 3-4 days, you know?
So welcome back. This is round two. Dr. Alex Arrington, right? That's how you want me to pronounce it, right?
That's good.
Okay, so I've always just found you just interesting as hell because you're into so much, you know. But the main reason we've talked to you on the show, obviously, we were just talking about his martial arts. I knew he was into martial arts. You're big. Is it Taekwondo?
Yeah, that's what I was raised doing. Yeah.
Are you still doing that?
Yeah, actually, we got a tournament coming up, not here in Jackson, but just in Ohio.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm in town. I'm gonna go hang with my mother.
Yeah.
We're gonna go.
All right.
You know, mop the floor a little.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. But you always talk to us. You are how do I say this? You are what do they call your profession?
Yeah,
So
I'm a naturopathic doctor.
That's right. I remember that from last time. Naturopathic.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Oh wow. That's
See, now I'm even further behind the 8 ball, stepping into part 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
So you guys have been down this road once. So
Yeah.
He was a guest about 2 years ago.
Naturopathic.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, you know, that's
Explain that to me like I'm 5.
All right, great. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason why I like doing these things is, you know, I was out west and I was tutoring some OChem and, you know, somebody had to reveal it to me, you know, because it's not around here in Ohio. We have allopathic medicine, which is the MDs, and we have osteopathic, which is the DOs. Doc Lance was the DO.
Yep.
And so he went over to Athens. I think. I actually don't know, but
I think that's right.
Athens does produce those.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I was, you know, going that route when my best friend overdosed and, you know, other things that's like contributed, of course, but that really, you know, just like sent me down a different path, you know, because I was like, look at what opiates have done to Southern Ohio and greater part of the United States, you know. And so I was like, they call this medicine. I don't really agree. You know, so I took several years off. I traveled around and I lived in China and, you know, medicine over there is way different, of course.
Yeah.
But in Colorado, I learned about naturopathic medicine, and very simply put, we're just like a little more holistic, you know, very similar medical rigor to our school, but there's herbalism, there's some homeopathy. You know, it's just a little bit on the alternative side. But I would say what's most important about it is that we try our best to restore the organism back to health as a whole. And it's not necessarily your skin may suffer, be suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Your weight may be, kind of showing the signs, your allergies, eczema, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just signs for me. I just look you down, up and down. I go, oh, yeah, here's what we can do for you. But, how I practice is people come to me with specific complaints, whether it be like reactionary because something has happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I'm ready to change.
Yeah.
Or people are just like, hey, I've seen my friends go down this path. I'm not, I'm feeling this certain way, but I've seen them try and fail. A lot of my patients, though, they have tried, they have failed, and they're just like, what else?
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I think outside the box a little. I'm not standard of care by far, But, it's all science-based. It's all evidence-based.
Okay.
It's just a little more on the cutting edge sometimes. But in reality, though, it's very conservative. It's very traditional. We're doing a lot of that old school stuff.
Full circle.
Right. Exactly.
Restorative.
Yes. Yeah. My saying is, a rising tide lifts all ships.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter your ailment, if we just make you healthy, you're going to fight infection better. You're going to, your joints are going to feel better.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Got it.
I honestly, I think that his approach, or just the naturopathic medicine, just style, I just feel like you're hearing more and more about it. I feel like it's kind of like an up and comer. It's like when cornhole or pickleball first got out. You're hearing about it more.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're going to start seeing these things all over because I think. I know we just stop me if I get off site. I'm not reading the list. So, if there's something that I do that's bad, just say nope.
Oh, that works.
But like, I feel like, we're seeing it more and more. We have seen that, we just talked about it, like with my father, we've seen the school of medicine, what they can do, and
Right.
not that what they do is bad. Jenkins is going through, some rehab right now on some ailments that you've caused over the course of 30 years, just injuries, or 20 years, right? So, we've seen what that other side does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm real curious about what you're doing because
Well, yeah, me too. I mean, that was part of it is standard of care. I mean, nowadays it is the baseline. So what other things are out there?
what's the numbers? You might know this. What's the numbers of how unhealthy the United States is right now?
I don't know the numbers. I know we're like 40 some, we've heard it many times, like we spend more
Then
per person.
Yeah, and we're the unhealthiest. We hear that all the time. And I would probably agree with that just on the 30,000 foot view of looking at the generalized population.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see if we can all go, or not, not all, but if a lot of people start going full circle back to like your ways,
right. Well, I did see it as kind of like almost cutting edge and something different, and something that in the future would be in greater demand. And I saw even here in Jackson, I'd come home, I'd be visiting with my mother, and I'd walk into our Kroger, and there's a little organic section, a little natural food section, and then it's grown, and that, like you said, the movement's grown, and people are, we do succumb to things, of course, when we're told this is the dogma, right?
Yeah.
But we're all not idiots, in a way. We're like, there are certain ailments, like maybe it's autoimmune disorder or something, that there's just not a lot out there for you in the conventional world. And so, I could come up with a list of things.
It's like needing a half kangaroo, half zebra.
Yeah.
Odds are it's not out there.
Yeah, exactly.
It almost sounds foundational, right?
Well, it is, in the sense that we do we have what's called the therapeutic order. And at the very tip top is surgery, is pharmacy, right? We learn that in our school. Pharmacology is part of it.
Yep.
We don't do any major surgeries. We're not pulling out hearts and stuff. We do minor stuff, a little stitch here, stitch here, stitch there.
Yeah.
But we're very foundational in the sense that we want behavioral change, and that's a little bit harder to ask sometimes. But even if you can't get that from people, there are the botanicals that are a little more, I would say, they work synergistically. They use multiple constituents in a plant, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I would never point fingers at, one practice or the other, but what I hear is, hey, that's eczema. Here's your cream.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead of, that's eczema. Tell me about your diet.
Right.
Tell me about
your living conditions.
Tell me about your extracurriculars.
Right.
Let's get to the foundation. And
they never ask that, do they?
Right.
Just
Maybe
went through
address
that
from
with
the
my
bottom
dad.
up.
Boy, and it was very disheartening, to be charged that premium dollar
Right.
to not get to the bottom of something. Like,
Well, and I think medicine is changing too. The paradigm is changing in that people are looking for like almost a concierge doctor. Really what that is foundational in the sense that they want a family doc. They want somebody who knows you. And when you go to them, you can address those things. You're like, hey, how's that? How's the family?
Yeah.
How's that environment going?
Yeah.
Not just, I see eczema. Here's what we do for eczema.
or they're not looking for, you're not real necessarily, if let's say that they're gaining weight or losing weight, or they got eczema, or they got, gut issues or anything, at the end of the day, it might be job and stress.
Right. It is a lot of times.
And
We have this thing. It's like a lot of times it's hard to ask people of this, but if you live in a home, it's full of mold, it's, dilapidated, and stressing you out. We have to perform a houseectomy. We got to get you out of that house. And that's a big step. Like that's a huge ask, right? But whether it's job or home or relationships, that is part of it,
man.
So you're not only treating medically, it sounds like you want a relationship with your patient, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to know what's the home life, what's the work life.
Right.
You're invested in that.
I am. And
it probably helps you treat, right?
yeah, absolutely. I remember I grew up watching Dr. House, and he used to like break into people's homes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do occasionally I will do a home visit, and those are my favorite visits. I do a lot of virtual medicine because it's convenient, and we're in 2025, and that's kind of what's happened since COVID. But, that isn't the same as being able to see a person face to face, as you know.
Yep.
And then I like to take it a next step further. I'm like, invite me into your home. Hopefully they, of course they're going to change. They're going to clean it real nice, make it look better.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times I'm like, in their attempt to cover things up, it reveals to me some of the issues. Like one of the simple things that I'd love your listeners to hear is that, those candles, those Glade plugins, all those things, those are pretty toxic. And it's actually contributed to air pollutants and things in your air. And so, it's like going into the home, then you can learn those things.
Yep.
They'll open up their cupboard and you're like, oh, yeah. But I want to also mention that, sometimes my virtual patients come in. I just had a recent case of thrush in a young man, which you don't usually get oral thrush, which is a fungal infection in a young man like that. And so they had tried the standard of care. They'd done the antifungals. But I looked at it deeper. He had some gastrointestinal issues. There was like more going on, and I tied that together, and I'm, actively treating with probiotics and just things that you don't see in conventional medicine.
Yeah.
And it's still a capsule,
Yeah.
It's not like I'm like, you got to quit your job, you got to move your house. Yeah. But, sometimes that is the underlying cause though, right?
Sure.
Like we've all had stressors and things like that.
Awareness isn't telling. You're
Yeah.
just making them aware.
Right.
Yeah.
And, every doctor is trying to work within the parameters of what they have. And so one thing that I do stand behind though is, I have my own practice so that I can kind of control things. Like I want an hour with you so that I can learn those. You're not going to get 15 minutes in an hour with me.
Yeah.
And that's just it because I can't do anything with that. I mean, I can, but we call that hallway medicine and it's like hit or miss.
And they've put quotas physically on a lot of these, like, general practice doctors. They got to see so many patients an hour.
Right. Well, and that's a big, larger conversation because again, there's a time and place for that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is it's not even the MD or DO's fault. It's largely
it's a corporate.
Yeah.
It's a corporate
There's
thing.
a huge umbrella. Healthcare itself is.
That's a whole nother game,
Yeah.
but it's something that people need to understand.
Right.
And I think we're just now at the age of time that people are becoming more aware of how our healthcare system works.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a headline topic nowadays,
Right.
That they're starting to realize like, okay, I guess now we're seeing how all this works. It's just not a matter of going to the doctor anymore. They've put so many levels to this now that it's like, you just can't go to a doctor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You need a doctor in order to see a specialist.
That's right.
Right.
That's
That's
right.
right.
So, are you on your own because that's how you want it, or can you find a larger corporate healthcare provider to work for?
Well, I am on my own because I want it. but both, I don't think I would be well accepted in that larger picture.
Mhm.
You know, I'd love that. You know, I'd love if like Holzer healthcare system here was like, yeah, let's take on this alternative provider. But I don't see myself as the alternative, so that's why I'm a little bullheaded.
I doubt it. Will insurance pay for it?
No, insurance will not.
That's
It will in certain states and certain jurisdictions.
yeah. So that's why they don't want it.
Exactly.
So do larger corporate healthcare providers have naturopathic health or no?
Well, there's some actually. At least last I checked, there is an ND, which is naturopathic doctor, in Cleveland Clinic system, and they're like heading the preventative wellness like wing. I don't think they're seeing patients. I think they're doing a more like overhead
Programs.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
yeah. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. There again, they had to title it with something so they could get their money.
Yeah, that's true. It is down to money, and I mean, I need money too, right? Like,
That's
I
right.
can't
You're
give
not doing
out-
this for free.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true.
So you attended school, you said Colorado?
No, that's just where I learned
Or
about it.
where you
I went to
learned about it.
Oregon, in Portland, Oregon is where I went to
Okay.
school.
Just out of curiosity. How graduating class?
Like from
How
there.
many? How many people were in that?
Probably 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
small.
do you know how many are nationwide with your
Oh, I don't know.
degree?
Well, I mean, it's limited for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't have those numbers.
Well, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
How many of you guys are tucked away? And
we're tucked away everywhere, but it's
yeah,
you got to seek us out, and you know, like part of the reason why I like to educate this area is because I'd like to see more interest, and that would draw more naturopathic doctors.
yeah.
You believe you could help them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because they're why you're here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are some NDs in Columbus and Cincy and Cleveland and all those areas. But yeah, I mean, you can count them on one hand. So
Yeah.
it's a very small number. And so I don't know, you know, what we're pulling. But that's part of it too, is like when you have great numbers, you can lobby the government, you can get the things, you know. And so when you're a small
It's
force, well, I think we're growing for
That's
sure.
that's part of that growth that we talked
Yeah.
about. Like, you know,
Absolutely.
it's becoming talked about enough that people are going to have to acknowledge it.
Yep.
And then, you know, especially like we're not going political or anything, but like especially with like your different religions and things that are now here, that's what they practice anyway.
Right. Well, yeah, a lot of times when I have patients from Africa or something,
Yeah,
you know,
they're doctoring themselves much like what
Right.
you're talking about, and they would never put them in a position as long as they had, you know, that their healthcare would not provide their healthcare provider or insurance company would not allow them their required health administration.
Well, and way back when I first, you know, graduated in 2019 from med school, and I moved, you know, in the East Side, and you know, that was like a weird time, right? 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a meeting of a group that I kind of failed to remember their name, but it was like Ohio Freedom, Medical Freedom
Okay.
group. And yeah, just I look at it like, you know, you should have a choice in the doctor you go to, kind of thing. So
100%.
so the fact that they don't really allow people to see us without cash-based practices and things like that, it is kind of a shame. But
Well, it's the same way, you know, this will be a great transition, not to cut you off, but this will transition nicely. It's no different than like the recreational and medical marijuana stuff. They won't pay for that,
Right.
but they'll let somebody make money by telling you that you have to have it as treatment.
yeah, I did the cannabis cards for a little bit.
Did
Yeah.
you? Yeah, I don't have mine. I did. I didn't tell you that. I let mine go.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, there's no incentive to retain, really.
Taxes. That's about
That's
it.
true.
That's
Well,
about it.
and some people, I think, because I still get residual cards for people, and I say residual because it's like legal everywhere now. But I bet
Oh, you prescribed them.
yeah,
That's what you're saying. You didn't have them. You prescribed them.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. I had one.
Well, I mean, I would get one. I
Yeah.
don't even know if you're allowed to as a doctor because they're like no drugs, you know. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm saying that I think it's a better alternative for many things, anxiety and pain and stuff. And so that's why I was happy to give, you know, Granny Smith, whatever, some opiate alternative, you know, therapeutics such
Yeah.
as cannabis.
Yeah.
And
And you talked about the mushroom world, you know, and
yeah,
we talked about Southern Ohio. That's where the transition. I mean, how full in Southern Ohio, how full of nutrients are the woods?
oh, that's, I mean, part of my huge attraction coming to the East Coast was because I was like, the biodiversity, you know, if you're an herbalist, this is the place to be. I even worked a little bit with the United Plant Savers, and they have a little sanctuary in Rutland, Ohio, and they're a well-known national, organization, and that's because there you can find fields of ginseng and golden seal, and so this is really a prime place for like mushroom, foraging, and as well as cultivation. If you really,
It's hard to cultivate them here. I've tried. It's hard to. I can't get them to grow, but like I can get them to grow, but I can't get them. I can't get the science behind what makes them grow. But they'll typically come up, and I may get a variety. Like I throw mushrooms in this general area, and just try to reseed them.
Yeah.
Typically, whatever I did this year is like way behind.
Yeah.
Like it's years and years and years before I see any relic of what I had already thought.
Well, part of it is, and this is actually how we feel in science about like the microbiome and probiotics, is when you have a covered area of plants or fungus, you can't really just cast seed. It's not going to just take. They're all competing for space, and if they have a little leg up on this one, So your probiotics, for example, have like a different mechanism. I think where it's almost they're just like promoting growth of healthy organisms. They're not necessarily replacing.
They're not corn.
Right.
You can't plant it and it just pop up.
Exactly.
Yeah, they don't germinate.
Right. But
it's a fungus. That's why it doesn't germinate.
Right. I mean, fungus is every time you step foot in the forest floor, you're releasing spores from some other fungal organism. So
yes.
It's a very rich environment. And if you're trying to do a natural like forest cultivation, I don't know how to go about that. But definitely fungus grows wild because it's this humid, nutrient rich soils and
I think a lot of the dead wood.
Yeah. For sure, there's a lot of organic matter, and we're in in Appalachia here. We got a lot of the,
and you have all climates every day because you've got the rolling hills with shadows.
Yeah.
So you've got either a cool morning or a cool evening. You got sunlight versus dampness.
Right.
And where your flatlands are just dry all the time.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps shade and produce our stuff. So let's talk about we were talking about I told you that I'd been fortunate enough to find lion's mane. You've been with me before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jenkins will vouch.
You're
the one that you were with, I found it twice, but the one you were with, I think, was already there. Maybe. I can't remember.
Blowing down a trail at 30 miles an hour, and this guy's like, lion's mane.
Wow. That's impressive. Yeah.
I told you once you see it once.
Yeah.
Keen eye.
I said it'll pop out at you.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a great, area of study. Like, lion's mane's really good for a lot of different things.
Let's talk about it. Like what?
Well, I mean, the big heavy hitter there, of course, is like cognition. Everybody talks about cognition, how lion's mane helps you
rebuild your brain.
Right. And while, there are constituents of that, I mean, I think, we're just touching the surface, right? Because, just even the chitin in any mushroom is going to be food for that microbiome. And if your microbiome is off, your brain's off, so
what do you mean microbiome?
So that's just, so the biome is like a genome, and it's like all the genetic material that produces all the microorganisms that live on your skin and your gut, in your ears.
All the organisms, the life.
Right, exactly. And it can be fungus, and it can be viral, it can be anything. So, again, it's just like the genetics. And, when you feed one set and starve another, you're going to get a different, just like you would in, imagine on a macro level. You got a bunch of, your lawn is full of different things, and you feed the grass and you kill or starve the weeds. Then you get this beautiful, I mean, that's not necessarily what you want in your gut microbiome is a single monoculture of grass, but you're influencing the terrain and you're kind of getting the product that you want. And so, just consuming mushrooms, it's not just what it does to you and your brain. It's what it does to your organisms, all the fungus, all the microorganisms in your gut. And, once you influence that influences everything from immune response to pathogens to your cognition. It's a very vast, there's a huge body of research that continues to grow. My undergrad was in microbiology, so I've just been like studying this for years. And, back in 2015 when I started med school, it was a very tiny blip in the whole vast sea of research, but now it's just growing and growing. And while mushrooms have their, medical constituents and stuff, I don't even know if we've begun to realize what it's doing to affect all those organisms that live on you and in you, and however you want to put it.
And what would you say about like this lion's mane? I guess that's a good example since you found a couple of them. Good for cognition, right?
Brain power. Brain.
But are you talking once a month, a couple times a year?
Much as you want.
Well, that's the thing about herbalism is it's really hard to, and they call that herbalism even though it's not a herb, right? But
Yeah.
it's a fungal organism, but
What do they call it?
mycology.
Mycology.
Yeah, mycological.
Yeah.
Right. Therapeutic or something. But it's really hard to overdo it.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Now you can.
Of course.
I mean, I've overdone it on Chicken of the Woods. I mean, you'll shit through a screen door.
Look,
To
you
paces.
can overdo it on ketchup. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Everything in
That's right.
moderation. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just say the safety profile, we call that a therapeutic index, like the starting dose where you start to feel. And I think that's where, and I do want to mention this because there's all these, mushroom coffees out there, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
those are
yeah.
like really hitting off because it's just
Mud water.
Yeah. And I don't, I don't know what's in them, so I can't speak that.
How could they duplicate lion's mane mushroom?
I mean, they're supposedly putting it in there. I just don't know how the amount. Is it reaching that therapeutic dose, right? Is it mostly instant coffee? Probably. I don't really know, but like a lot of them that I get, I'm not really convinced.
Maxwell House and some manure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm just like
Yeah.
not sure. And like they don't highly scrutinize those things unless you can find, and that's again why you might want to go to a naturopathic doctor is like, where's the good stuff, right? Like, Like the stuff that the gurus are selling you on the internet.
So you'll dive into their diet like that and
Right.
say, hey, I see you're drinking mud water.
Right.
You like the mushroom coffee? Let's switch over to this,
Yeah.
or let's just buy some lion's mane mushroom, grind it up ourselves, put it in there.
Absolutely. Or tincture or whatever, like, maybe you don't like the tincture, or here's the capsule, and so it's about, I think people, 70% or more, you make up the statistic, who knows how many,
Yeah.
but so many people are on different like supplements, but none of it's guided. It's all just like, oh, that looks good. Oh, this is good for my brain. I'll take it.
Well, you read Amazon reviews. I mean, how do
Yeah.
people get into this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say, while you can overdo it, it's hard to. The therapeutic window is very wide, but most people aren't even getting into the window, right? They're just not taking the high quality, that good cannabis. You know what I'm saying? They're getting that dirt weed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You're getting those dirt shrooms.
Right. So like you got to make sure you're getting the high quality stuff, and that's what part of my education is like. Yeah, how do you read between the lines and find that like third party scrutiny or something that's going to ensure, a seal of approval or something.
When you talked about tolerance levels, like let's talk about psilocybin.
Yeah.
Psilocybin, I've done it all, right? I've taken it to the limit. I've microdosed it.
Oh yeah.
I truly enjoy the microdosing way more than, and the only reason that I didn't microdose is because I accidentally one day took too much.
Yeah.
And now the second, third time, I don't know what happened, but it was one of those deals where after it happened, right after that all the smoke clears and everything's, you're back to normal. It was like, okay, that is no different than drinking that one too many bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. You've crossed over that threshold from a good time to outer space.
Yep.
And that's the downfall of the foraging type of products is there is no serving size labeled on the bag.
Right. And the concentration. I mean, in cannabis world, they're starting to be like, oh, this one's 19, this one's 23, whatever. Yeah. So they're and that's just THC, let alone CBD, CBN, CB, whatever. Right.
CBN,
right. Yeah, exactly.
All that stuff.
So, and that's what I was talking about, like how herbalism has like that synergism, like multiple constituents, they work together. It kind of like lowers side effect profile. But yeah, like I said.
So what psilocybin? Let's get back to the root of that. So what is it in psilocybin versus what's in lion's mane?
Yeah, I mean, just
the hallucinogen aspect of it.
Well, psilocybin is not a species of fruiting mushroom, that's the molecule that they're finding, like THC, in golden teacher, different like Costa Rica strains, and there's one that's called penis envy because it looks like a big, it's phallic.
Okay.
And so there's different strains.
It's a medical way of saying.
I'm trying to keep it above par.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. But yeah, so you got your like strains of mushrooms, and then they are different psilocybin containing mushrooms, and so it's psilocybin is
its own thing then.
Yeah, and so actually all the research that's being done on it, like in Johns Hopkins, they're actually extracting that. It's almost pharmacy at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer like you're just taking an herb or a fungus. You're actually getting.
But what is it that they're looking for in the psilocybin, just to like find properties of it, like as far as like what's in it, what's doing this, what can we use it for?
Yeah, so they're extracting psilocybin out of these psilocybin containing mushrooms, which they have similar name. It's where they get the name for the psilocybin constituent, and they take that, and then they're probably working on the dosage. Like you were saying, the dose makes the poison, and the dose makes the medicine. So, I was looking at some research, and there, the range is like 20-30 milligrams. But if you're doing it from dry mushroom, mushroom could be 1%, can be 0.6%, and that's where pharmacy has some superiority because you're getting a clean product. But I also am arguing against pharmacy in a way because there may be other constituents in the mushroom itself that we just aren't studying, that aren't psychoactive, but help with nausea and anxiety.
Yeah.
But that is a common side effect when you're, macro dosing and you're like, you are facing some like existential thing. But that's how when you change perception and you change perspective, you can change behavior. And that's really what it's doing is like, I've come to conclude that it's like, kind of like alcohol's a toxin, right? But like the right amount of poison is medicine or whatever. It's like the dose makes the poison. Sure. So, you may be, even though the toxicology is not so bad, like the reports on the toxicology isn't so bad, you're kind of like seeing death. I feel like it's almost like this is a defense mechanism of the mushroom. And so
you talking about a trip?
Yeah. I'm talking about macro dose. I'm talking about 20-30 milligrams of psilocybin, not the micro stuff. That's what they're studying mainly in Johns Hopkins and stuff.
Is the next level, going to the moon.
Right.
What happens to you?
Right. And if you do that like preemptive therapy, maybe, one of the greatest things that I see it's used for is, alcohol cessation, smoking, nicotine cessation, and it's shown like 80% efficacy. This is like unheard of in random control trials. So that's what's really
80% success rate.
Yeah.
It'll make you see your demons.
Right.
I mean,
and that's the side effect is
oh boy,
the reckoning.
I fought myself for 4 hours.
But but after, if you go into it thinking like you may have like a little preemptive session, say you're like trying to quit smoking, you're like, okay, what does smoking do for you? What are your goals? You want to see your grandkids, you want to have a healthy,
you want to feel better.
Right. Exactly. You want to be able to
not stink.
Go up the stairs and not like feel winded.
Yeah.
So you do all that and then you go into it and then maybe you see yourself. It's like a visit from Christmas future, the come to Jesus moment.
Boy, it is.
Yeah, exactly. But then on the other side of that, for a whole month, you're looking at everything differently. And I think it's
like a newborn baby.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's like you see life and you see death and you feel life. Right. So I do that all the time though. I do that without psilocybin. I hang over cliffs with rock climbing or I do a cold plunge, but that is one serious way to how like change your mind, which is the title of the book from one of those. Yeah.
Your book.
Not my book, but a really good author. But yeah, I do have a little recipe book and that's mainly just nutrition and food and things like that.
Yeah, he's got a book coming out.
Well, that's
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's version 2. It was a little pandemic project back in the day.
Okay.
But I'm going to revamp that, kind of update it a bit. It might, reveal some new things.
So you've still got one available, but a revision's coming.
Yeah, I might be cutting that off here soon and just like, replacing it with the new one. But yeah, the first one, it was Dinner with Dr. Arrington. You like that title? I don't know.
I like
about
it.
But
I like it.
Now that they know what it is,
Yeah.
yeah. They probably thought that you were just going to tell them about your day.
yeah, exactly. It's like a vanity project, but you're like, hey, I learned all this in med school. I really want to convey it.
Yeah. So going back to like this psilocybin stuff, why would they be opposed to people using that for the good? Like, now I'm not saying everybody needs to go take a trip. I think now, interesting enough, one of my best friends was recently in a coma, and he was in it for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but he, the way that he told me he was thinking during the process of this coma, okay, like he was in a mental, not fight with himself, but like he was still working while he was in this coma. Like
wow.
he doesn't remember me coming to the hospital to see him. He doesn't remember some things that was some dialogue that we had. And I mean, he was not talking or nothing,
Right.
but like he doesn't remember like moving hands. And during that time, I thought he was hearing me, but he was in his own mind dreaming, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had a level of consciousness.
But he had a level of consciousness, and it was very similar to a trip, in my opinion. It was like, I told him, I was like, well, it sounds like you just took a 2 week, hallucinogen trip. I was like, hell, I know people pay good money for that.
Right.
Divine vacation.
Yeah, I said enjoy it.
Peru, ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, but now he was probably 3 weeks. Let's see, that was January 12th. So he was up until probably 2 weeks ago, he was still kind of mentally fuzzy from that long trip that he took. Just how you are after a hangover type of situation. It's just that's kind of the way it was in his brain, that brain fog. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to get at with all that is, they do it to you,
right?
Okay, and they charge you a premium to do it. I mean, for that coma, to put you in there with that anesthetics, they're using the same thing. Why can't they bring that down to a smaller amount, like, and use it to the good? Not that I know they're not using psilocybin as an anesthetic, but I'm just saying, like,
well,
it obviously did the same thing.
Yeah, you're on to something, because nowadays the big craze is ketamine.
I've heard of that. Tell me about ketamine.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar on the subject, but it is used for anesthesia, and it is like kind of like a weird trip if you use it recreationally or therapeutically or whatever. It's just a trip. And now they're giving it in low dose, and you can get like little tabs of it, and it is treating depression. I have a lot of colleagues out west doing it, and they're doing it similarly because
Ketamine, not a form of acid?
Nope. No, different. It's not hallucinogen in that way. Yeah.
All right.
But I mean, it will send you on a trip, and like the K-hole is what you may have heard. It's like you don't go too far into it, right? And like some celebrities have died using it and stuff. So it's definitely like you have to know your therapeutic dose.
No, I feel like I've heard it used like in comparison with LSD.
I mean, it's pretty comparable, but
comparable trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, comparable trip. Probably.
I mean, I don't think it has quite the like visual, and there's like different. It's a little bit different, but it is treating depression pretty successfully. And I have colleagues out west in Oregon where they can perform those kind of procedures, having people come in, taking a pretty high bolus, high amount, and then like for a whole month they're like depression free. And it is similar, like you're doing the session, you're just like
you're kind of like your own shaman.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of my friends are shamans. They're literally.
Isn't that what their role is to kind of get you ready for some sort of what is their role, I guess?
Well, I mean, in part, it helps in the studies and stuff. They have people who are monitoring blood pressure and just like making sure that you're not like going to have a heart attack in the midst of all that like reconciliation. But yeah, carefully monitoring the dose as well as your trip throughout it. Like there's probably some anecdotes that they're have on hand and things like that.
No, you're going to get, if you get sick, here's some tricks to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like shamanism to me is kind of a foreign thing, and I kind of like leave it at that, because I'm, nowadays especially it's kind of like taboo to be like, misappropriating culture, so
But it's a guided trip,
right?
If you're being treated with ketamine, what you're saying is, you're under a watchful eye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's a supervised trip. I wouldn't say it's a guided.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I mean, those are nuanced. I mean, a guided trip sounds like you're in the woods,
Yeah.
like-
Like, hey, what'd you take me here for? Because I'd have killed the last bitch that took me to where I went.
Yeah,
It was not pretty, but I definitely saw it was just night and day. Cause I'd been taking some, just getting the microdosing aspect out of it. And then boom, just one day, that same amount, same piece,
really,
same everything. Bam.
yeah. Well, we are constantly in a state of flux, and that is what's really tricky about medicine, is because the dose, like I said, the dose makes the poison, the dose makes the medicine. That changes day to day, because if you're in a certain state, you may need, you maybe you're eating something, I don't know, but it all alters liver function. In medical school, you only learn about St. John's wort and grapefruit juice. Don't combine those with drugs, because that will alter their metabolism. But everything alters the metabolism, and even your state of mind can potentially.
Your BMI.
Yeah, right.
Your everything. Your oxygen level.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Hey, so not to segue off of, I guess, this natural occurring stuff, right, from the ground. But what about, do you have a background in, say, what benefits of live animals, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
Are there nutrients in healthy, cow liver, tongue, testicle, heart? Seriously,
The mountain oysters.
well,
Have you ever had one?
no.
Okay, me
Tongue,
Yeah, I love tongue.
tongue, not testicle.
I fix a mean cow tongue.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, you do. I've had it. I've had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
It's a really good cut of meat.
Ryan
It
Hall
is.
and I pretty well deemed it. I mean, it's the most disgusting piece of meat that you could
gotta
probably cook.
peel it. Yeah.
But I guess same holistic qualities.
Yeah. Well,
as
I'll
what's
say,
coming from the ground, from the earth.
yeah, and what I'll say, ketamine, for example, I don't even know its origin. There are some really interesting, things that occur naturally are pharmaceuticals, penicillins, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is extremely blurry. Okay. But yeah, if you were to take an iron supplement because you are anemic, you could just very well eat a liver, because it's going to be very iron rich. And, B12 is very prevalent in cow meats and stuff.
Iron rich foods.
Yeah.
B12 is prevalent in iron rich foods.
Well, in combination, yeah. Meat in general has got B12 in it.
Okay.
And then if you get to a liver, it's a little more iron rich than just regular meat.
Heart, iron rich.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The organ meats actually are really coveted in those primitive, different tribal, there are tribal rituals in which the pregnant ladies will they will be given those organ meats because of their nutrient,
Density.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and that's a subject though I would love to talk about, because, I'm not, there's no right diet. Like you're saying, you're on the carnivore diet, and I was kind of I don't even want to go there, but you end up pissing a lot of people off. You're like,
I've been doing that for 43 years. I mean,
pissing people off.
I ain't real worried about it.
Exactly. Well, what I would say is that I'm glad that, you're seeing success, and anybody doing anything, if you're seeing success, that's great.
I'm not going to be on it forever.
Well, what I would say is that, while, weight is a healthy marker, also your cholesterol numbers might be
Great.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I just got blood work back today. I'm by far the healthiest I've been in 15 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my blood pressure's under control. I'm off everything other than my gout pill 3 times a week and one blood pressure pill. And my blood pressure's slowly coming down, but it's starting to come down, taking that pill less and less.
Yeah.
My cholesterol numbers were great. Sugar was just great. I mean, it was unbelievable. So compared to where it was, because I was pre-diabetic, I was pre-high cholesterol and everything else. Now I'm eating a lot of lean meats. Okay, and I'm eating a lot of some fats, but I'm eating good fats, and I'm eating them in moderation. You know, and I'm working out a good bit, so I'm not so much worried about the cholesterol part of it right now. Not going to stay on it forever.
Yeah.
Loved the idea of the ketosis. Okay, like I have found a new form of energy, and it's insane. Jenkins will tell you. I mean, I like to go pretty hard. You know, I'm at it all the time doing something.
Right.
And I mean, I feel like I'm 20. So that's just that gives me this new form of energy. Exactly. I will say I'm 2 months into this, and I am ready for something. I mean, I'm ready for like a pizza.
Well, it's sustainability. When you start talking diets and things like that. But, I mean, for a fair-skinned ginger, you're just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, I'm feeling great.
Absolutely.
But
I think to his point and to your point, you know, what works for you may not work for me.
Right. Might not,
And
yeah.
I think what he does is
figure it out.
Get to the foundation and figure it out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're doing is, in a sense, is a whole food diet. You know, if you're eating steak, you know, there's no additives, you know, there's not like a bunch of stuff going on. So it is.
Main thing I've really done that I can say I've 100% stuck to is cutting out the sugars.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, every now and then I might like drink a protein shake or eat a protein bar or something, you know, whenever I'm getting that.
But at the crux of it, it's whole food, nutrient dense.
Yeah,
exactly.
Diet, low sugar diet. Right. Yeah, if not no sugar.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you add a bunch of sugars, when you add a bunch of salts and all these things, you know,
bad salts like iodized salts is not a good salt, but like Himalayan sea salt is a great salt.
Right. I mean, it's definitely got a lot more diversity in its, you know, composition. It's still a lot of sodium chloride, but then you're going to get these trace minerals. Yeah. There's like benefits to that.
What was it you think they was finding on Salt Creek 100 years ago, 200 years ago?
Oh man, I'd say, that was some really good salt. Like I know in West Virginia, they're finding, you know, they like digging down and finding salt
this isn't like iodized Morton's salt. Like, this is like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, iodine doesn't have its, you know, it's got its place, but it is something that, you know, there are certain parts of the world in which that's the scarcity and, you know, and maybe years ago it was scarcity because of whatever practices, maybe agricultural, but, you know, I don't think we're not, you know, every day we're not like iodine deficient. That's not usually the issue. And instead we're like trace mineral deficient. You know, there's these different small amounts of, you know, like homeopathic small amounts of things that you want to get that you're not necessarily getting just from a pure Morton iodized salt. And that's what the Himalayan salts will help with, contribute to that. And, you know, just like I said, the micronutrients of like, you know, well-raised beef, you got B12, you got iron, you got different things. But then there's, and why I would push back, and carnivore's great, keto's great until you really scrutinize. It removes a lot of the vegetables, the fruits that I would say are also nutrient dense that you really, you know, it's like the diversity of nutrients.
Okay, so give it to me here.
So I'm saying that, you know.
Broccoli versus chicken.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, lots of cruciferous vegetables, because they're high in sulfur. You know, when you cook them, they kind of smell like a fart.
Yeah.
That's sulfur content.
I'll never be able to eat one again. Now I'm going to smell farts.
Well, you know, it's like, that's the only way you can get people to understand. Because I'm telling you, like, it's sometimes unappealing. In certain situations, you walk into someone cooking cabbage and you're like, that does not smell good, right? But like eating cabbage, eating broccoli, eating Brussels sprouts, high amounts of sulfur, high amounts of antioxidant power there.
You're not a Brussels sprout guy?
Oh, I love them. I'm just not doing
wrapped
them
in
right
bacon?
No. I just like them butter.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well,
wrap a Brussels
bacon?
Bacon.
All right, I'll try it.
Yeah. Well, you got to be careful of that pork. I don't know if the Jews and Muslims like had it figured out, but like you got to be careful of the pork. But the you know, the truth is that I don't know actually what may be the issue there. A lot of times it's nitrites and things that they add for preservative.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So the best way to get pork is like a big slab of pork belly.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Okay.
But in general, like you do need to look at diversity as a primary thing. And that's why I'd say that's my criticism to carnivore.
Carnivore, yeah.
So you want to eat a lot of different things, you know.
I'm eating a ton of organs, ton of beef, ton of fish.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Chicken.
Organ meats are one of my favorites. Poultry and fish are my top two. And then it's grass-fed beef. It's,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's like, it's the good stuff. And with pork, I don't really know. Like, I've known around here, there's been a couple good producers of pork, and it's like finding the good stuff. You don't just want to get the stuff that's like going to China. Unfortunately, they're getting the majority of our pork, and like, you know, we don't produce it in a way that it used to be the lean meat. You know, it was like really heavily sold as the lean meat, but I mean,
pork was sold as a lean meat.
Yeah, because pork chops and things. Yeah.
I guess it doesn't have much fat on it, but there's something there because, you know, you definitely get a different sensation from it. Yeah. Like after I'm really like aware and keen on this now. You know, you go eat steaks every day for 2 months and then throw a pork chop in there. It's a different animal, literally.
Yeah, literally.
You know, exactly. Makes you feel different. Typically, I'll gain a few pounds. You know, whenever I do that, I don't have the energy level that I had with the beef fat versus the pork fat.
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
well, I don't even know what it is, and that's why I say I don't know if the Jews and the Muslims like figured it out. But like, there is something there. You know, I love me some pork. Pork belly tacos are my favorite tacos. But it is a very sparing thing, and same with beef. And when I want to be if I'm like I need to peak performance, like I'm like I need to like really land this interview or something. It is poultry, fish, and cruciferous, those sulfurous.
What about wild game?
I love wild game. Yeah. Some venison. You know, whether it's like pheasant or something. Yeah. Because they, you know, it's a little tougher, it's a little gamier, but like I'm saying, that's because there's nutrient density there.
Yep. They would have had to build muscle in order to survive.
Exactly.
Yeah. I eat a lot of deer, a lot of rabbit, a lot of pheasant.
Well, yeah, you're in the right there. I think, hunting and fishing, that's how we, you know, became humankind, right? Like gathering those things. So I'm not vegan, but I call it like vegan light because I'm like, you got to have a lot of veggies. And that's where I said the carnivore diet limits that. And so I eat a lot of veggies. And then, I will make sure that I have some red meat for the B12, the iron, the like density of that. And then, you know, I stick to a lot of fish. I love meat.
So you're doing it more. You're not doing it as far as a calorie intake or a macro or micro intake, I guess, or macro intake.
Macro, yeah.
So I'm trying to hit my goal weight in protein a day. So I want to be 215 by my birthday. So I eat 215 grams of protein a day. That's hard to do. So like that, that's why I'm doing the carnivores because I'm looking at it. You're looking at it through a lens of, hey, I need these microbiomes,
right.
you know,
right.
And I'm looking at it as, okay, I need these macros.
Well, actually, really, I just like crap all over the macro counting and calorie counting.
Well, if I was built like you, I would too.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm the testament.
Maybe you are. Maybe.
Right? So
you
like,
might be.
That's what I'm saying. It's like I eat loads of pasta, loads of carbs. But a lot of times it's like, it's like strictly Italian pasta. It's got to be like imported pasta because it is a little bit different. You know, European gluten, like people like don't tolerate gluten. You get it from Europe. Like for some reason you tolerate it. You know, you go to Europe and you like walk around. I mean, granted they walk around a lot more, but I'm saying their food is different. It's a whole different bear.
It's not nearly as processed.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, you take like a thing of ramen noodles or something.
Yeah.
And that's really, there's nothing in that is food.
Yeah, it's like a lot of sugar, basically.
Well, it's just all chemicals, and it's a potion,
right,
that developed into, you know, these hard edible, and they call them edible. Who knows if they really are? You know.
Well, I mean, if you're like starving, sure, right? Like that's gonna provide you the calories you need to survive. But yeah, I definitely don't calorie count in the sense I really take the focus off of that, you know, because if you're focused, if you're like, oh yeah, this is 120 calories, it fits in my diet. That's not what you need to be looking at. You need to look at the ingredients list. Is it like 20 ingredients or is it 2? You know, that's the whole food thing, least processed. And that's even, I don't even know what the difference between the gluten in Europe and America is. But it could be the dough conditioners and the preservatives and all these things. And I'm saying, you know, you grind your own flour and you make cookies from that, I'm sure it's going to be fine. You know, you can use that good butter.
What's the difference between, margarine and salted butter, right?
Well, my favorite is Irish butter because if you look at that Irish butter, it is deep yellow. You know, it's beta carotene rich, and that's kind of like go for that over, whatever the processed vegetable oils that
the stuff that the flies won't even like.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like,
Have you ever noticed it won't melt now?
Oh no, I didn't.
Hey,
well, I've seen that,
and
on
flies won't land on it.
Like if you buy that, what's that yellow container one? Country Crock. I don't know. It's not Country Crock, but whatever the yellow one is. Yellow and blue.
Blue
just leave her out there. You'll not come back to a puddle, I'll promise you.
Right.
It might get a little softer, but it will not melt.
Yeah.
What about beef tallow? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I like that actually, and that's coming back. I hear like more restaurants are using that.
Yep. There's a big movement of that right now,
and I think they're moving in the right direction because that is like a whole food animal fat versus these hydrogenated oils and
high fructose corn syrup.
Exactly.
What is that? What is the high? Because I think people just see corn syrup and think, oh, that's good for you. It's corn.
Well, I mean, corn ain't bad, and what the issue is, and this is like more of a larger governmental thing, is like they're subsidizing corn. We have a lot of corn. It feeds the beef, and then they get real fat, and you get this like real thick, marbled, it's beautiful, of course, meat, but it's like highly saturated with a lot of fats. And same with like they're turning it to sugar, the corn sugars. Fructose is not bad. You know, you get fructose from apples. You get fructose from any fruit. That's where the name comes from. But when you eat an apple, you get fiber and you get all that stuff like that. So, I mean, if you were like, here's your options, and you get like a Mexican Coke with cane sugar or the American version, I would definitely go cane sugar like 100% of the time because it's a more naturally occurring sugar. And I like honeys and a lot of it. And that's the thing, like I like pour honey on stuff all the time because I'm like naturally occurring sugars, right? It's not, and I'm adding it. Just like salts. Like if I add salt, that's different than when I get a canned good. It's just, the amount of salt in there. It's just like
can of Pringles.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's insane. Even the like ramen noodles, like how much salt is in that?
Yeah.
But you can get salt-free noodles and add your own. And when you do it to taste, it's not so bad. You can even lower your threshold over time. Same with sugars. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the like really, it's like unnatural, whatever sugars. But this morning I went to the spot, and here in Jackson, great spot. And, I had myself a nice muffin. I'm sure it was like a big carb sugar load, right?
Yeah.
But like, I'm not worried about that because the rest of my day is Whole Foods and things like that.
And you're going to go clean the mat or,
Exactly. It's about timing. It's like people eat a lot of sweets at night, and it's like use it for comfort. It's just, it's different if you do it.
Walk me through a day. Do you eat breakfast?
Yeah, about every day.
What?
Well, if I,
what's an average breakfast?
Average breakfast would be eggs.
Mm-hmm.
It's eggs and definitely some carbohydrate. So like I try to pair the protein and the carbs together because that's the best like absorption of the sugar. Mm-hmm. But it's a complex carb. It's usually like a whole wheat or something. Dave's Killer Bread. Mm-hmm. It's out of Portland, Oregon, by the way.
I know Dave's Killer Bread.
Yeah, when I was out west, that was the only place you could find it, and then it eventually made its way out here. Right. So, just like a very complex carbohydrate plus a protein. But I'm telling you, we all live the fast-paced life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes it's a cookie and some coffee.
Yeah.
Right. But like timing-wise, that's fine because I'm going to go. I'm crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
I need some energy. Sure, it's a spike, but as it hits the bloodstream, I'm going.
You're
strong.
burning it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not calorie deprivation through the day, and then you get to the evening, and you're like, now I need to make up for all the calories. And that's what a lot of people do. Is they're like, I'm eating salad, I'm barely eating, I'm going to skip breakfast. Right. That's a huge one. It's like skip breakfast because you're fasting, which fasting is great, by the way.
Gives your gut a break.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're like, I need to hit it hard. I need to, I'm exercising, whatever. Some simple carbohydrates are not going to kill you. So you eat what you can. You get some carbs in. You get the energy. Lunch, hopefully, is a little bit better. Dinner's where you really pile on. And dinner should be early.
What's early?
5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Not 7, 8, 9.
And what's your go-to dinner?
I mean, my favorite is pasta. I eat a lot of pasta, but
European made pasta.
it is Italian, shipped in. It's imported. And then another one would be, I love to roast chickens. I just take a whole chicken, just throw it in the roaster. I like to what is it when you flay it out like that? I can't remember the name.
Butterfly.
Butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
I just split it down the chest, split it open, cook it, and I'll make a chicken sandwich, chicken salad, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but it is a good chicken. You know what I mean? It's like Amish.
Mm-hmm.
The Amish around here, they know what they're doing. I don't know what it is. I go for the USDA organic or the Amish raised or something because there is some level of scrutiny, as far as the feed and stuff like that goes. But
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you want to get a chicken from Franklin Valley, or you want eggs from Franklin Valley, you want eggs from the green box at Walmart, right?
Well, look at what's happening to them right now. We were the origin of the bird flu. Ohio was.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Yeah, so I think it's
natural disaster right now. A couple of counties.
Yeah, this egg price ain't going anywhere because of this bird flu.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think I want to say they've killed 10, 15 million chickens in the last 2 months in Ohio.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I don't know if you ever knew this, but if you've ever tried to do your own, it's almost impossible to find you a USDA regulated poultry processor, somebody that you can take your chickens to and have them packaged in that way.
Well, and that's my pushback against it is we have around here is Snowville Creamery. They do a lot of the organic.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's a great product, but it's like a USDA organic milk. But they're paying out the wazoo for that just to get the scrutiny.
Just a sticker. It's no different than your Energy Star or your UL labels or any of that stuff. You're just paying. Now, there is some backing to that stuff.
It's difficult to get that.
Yeah,
right?
it does cost you money. However, they're not. But it probably costs you just as much money to have the equipment that it takes to achieve that goal.
Exactly. And I've had producers fail that test. So they're not just letting anybody through.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why I like farmers markets. I helped the Wild Ramp in Huntington as their board member, treasurer, and stuff. And they, don't have the organics and stuff, but you can at least talk to your farmer. And I really am into the local produce. Going to the farmers market, produce things close by. The closer you can get to the source, the better. You know, and that's to me if it's coming right off your neighbor's, property, then you're getting it fresh. It's to the life source.
Yeah.
And that's really where you want to get it. And you can talk to them about it. And even organics, people will push back and they'll say, well, you can use pesticides. Well, they typically stick to those naturally derived pesticides. During the pandemic, we used thymol, or Tymol. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's
THYMOL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from thyme. It's from the plant thyme. And they were using that to fumigate the trucks after we had a COVID positive patient. And I was like, it smells like a pizza in here, I'm like, why does it smell so good? But thyme has its antimicrobial effects and you can use it as a pesticide. It's a little more natural and it fits the bill for organics. And I'm saying, other forms like glyphosate have been linked to lymphomas and things, and you just don't necessarily want that.
Yeah.
So if you can get a local farmer who's not using glyphosate,
absolutely,
you're just hey, we're in the clear, good. But it's a difficult, can you imagine going to a farmer and be like, hey, how's the, we use the glyphosate or, how's the microbial things going on there? But, I think, like you were saying about how rich is the soil here. We could be, all of us around here have probably got big lawns. We could be growing stuff, and should we go back to that? I don't know, but
it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Do you have a garden, Alex?
I don't.
You don't?
I did have some tomatoes last year though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just put them in the ground. I was like, oh, let's see what happens. Yeah. There was a bad drought in this, in the Appalachian Mountains here. Yeah. But they went pretty crazy, I'll be honest. But yeah, it's a very difficult, how do you transition through time to this? We've gone to big corporations making all our food, you know,
Yep.
coming from Mexico, you know, that kind of stuff. So I don't know, but like I'm pushing for that. That's what I wanted.
Well, it's wild to think about. I mean, my parents still garden. Like
Yeah,
they're
that's good.
teaching my sons to
Oh,
garden.
Awesome.
You know, I mean,
My
hell,
dad's garden.
I've been removed from that for
Mm-hmm.
the better
You
part
got
of
now you can garden. You got a place to garden.
Yeah.
20 plus years.
You got a big yard.
You know,
You ought to
Yeah,
get
my-
them boys out there gardening.
I mean, they're hammering out the rototiller. They're digging
Yeah.
potatoes out
Nice.
at mom and dad's. They love
Well,
it.
Yeah.
and you know, we were talking about therapies earlier, horticulture therapy, time with the soil. You know, you're contacting those microorganisms. There is something there therapeutic.
Are you a grounding guy?
I like
Now-
grounding. Yeah. I don't.
There's a lot to be said. You know what that is?
Oh yeah, bought my mom grounding sheets for Christmas.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it took
Yeah.
her sleep scores. My mom was sleeping
Oh, no
like
way.
my mom's got really bad arthritis,
Yeah.
and she was sleeping. Her deep sleep was still incredible. I sleep 10 minutes a night. She sleeps an hour and 30.
Nice. Yeah.
But it took her from an hour and 30 of deep sleep on her Garmin to 4 hours and 30 minutes of
Wow.
deep sleep.
Well,
That's amazing.
there's something to be said for just putting your bare feet
On the
Yeah.
concrete.
You know, it's one thing to garden to get your hands in there, but
Yeah.
you put your bare feet
Yeah.
Yeah. I
in the
mean,
lawn, in the
Yeah, oh,
grass,
yeah,
in
yeah.
some dirt.
exactly. I mean, I keep saying like I'm the bridge between, you know, like the tree huggers and the farmers, right? Like we're all
That's
on
a
the
great
same
point.
page.
I'm getting that vibe. from
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, those farmers live till they're 100 or 94 or something because they be touching that earth a lot.
They're in the earth.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're not just touching it. They're in it.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So I'm like, yeah, you know, and that's why, you know, talking about not getting political, it's like, you know, we have a lot more in common than we do differences.
Yeah.
And, you know, out west, when I was out west, people were fighting for half an acre to have a couple of chickens. I'm like, back in Southern Ohio, we got chickens roaming everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like, this is really a place in which that can thrive, I think.
Yep.
I've always thought that's what they should publicize.
Yeah.
I've always thought, you know, well, I don't know why we're trying to be a downtown. You know, I mean, I know you have to have that, but like,
Yeah.
you know, we're going for like that trendy Columbus vibe. And it's like, listen, we are country people.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that we need to be promoting, like that was my goal with Jeeping for Joy all those years,
Yeah.
was to show people the beauty of Appalachia
Right.
that a lot of them lived here all their life, never saw.
Exactly.
You know, and I mean, we're very fortunate to have these
Yeah.
humongous pockets of, and we're even kind of small in Jackson County, you know,
Yeah.
compared to most, but like we have these small pockets of large amount of acres.
Yeah.
You know, you might go to Lake Catherine and
Right.
Hammertown, there's 5,000 acres. You don't do that in a lot of places.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like buying the prime real estate next to this small park, you know,
Yeah.
in a place like Colorado or something. And yeah, here we're like, we have all
your back
this-
door.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, you know, it is funny to me because I've lived both sides of it almost in
Yeah.
the political sphere where I'm in Southern Ohio.
Yeah.
And then I'm in Portland, Oregon, you know, and that place is real famous for being like hyper liberal or whatever.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, I'm like, hey, you know, I've lived in China and America and all these places. Like, I mean, there's a lot of differences between a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, and this is what I really like about naturopathic medicine. I'm like, yeah, we're bringing the old school and the new school. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's really not. It's not one of those things where we have to be all divided about. You know, if we can like unify on the fact that medical freedom is something.
It's not, that's not a political move.
Right.
That's, you know,
It's a very humanistic,
Well, it's a
fundamental.
grassroots move.
Yeah.
yeah.
And absolutely. Like, I think in Ohio, like if I were to convey any message, it would be to, you know, look to those who are doing those things. I don't care if you're MD, DO, ND, whatever, doing those things and like vote with your conscience and your dollar and things and like go to those people and like, let's make this a movement, you know, in Ohio, especially because Wisconsin actually just flipped as one of the states that's like pro naturopathic. And that was like one of the first Midwest states. And I was like, Ohio's got to be next. Yeah, this has got to be a movement for the area. We have Cleveland because there's that provider there in Cleveland Clinic. I feel like that's Northern Ohio is really,
It'll go south.
and we as the Southern Ohio constituents here, we can push those legislators to, you know, like let's seed something in the books. Let's do something about this. Like let's get insurance coverage, and let's get these naturopathic doctors like attracted to the area. Because it's like they're all scared. They're all on the West Coast and East Coast, Northeast. They're scared. They're like staying up there because, if you're venturing out,
That's where your market is.
yeah,
I think those folks would be shocked to come and plant their bare feet in Appalachia, because I think they would be welcomed beyond belief. Because, politics aside,
yeah,
we're from the earth down here, man.
right,
Yeah.
And it spans a whole lot of states,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
and they're proud of it. And I think that there would be more in common with people from those regions with folks here and,
Yeah.
South Williamson, West Virginia, right? I mean, those people are backed into valleys in coal country, but
Yep.
They're still
they
great
know
people.
Naturally, those people know what's growing in the woods,
Right.
what's good for
Absolutely.
you, the same as we do.
Well,
Yeah.
we got to get back to that. I think.
Yeah.
I think these generations, as of late, and the opioid crisis and things have really, I always said this about hunting. The hunting numbers, like in Ohio, are drastically low.
Really?
Okay,
Mhm.
compared to years ago,
Yeah.
and it's constantly kind of dipped,
Yeah.
right? And I always said what happened to the hunting culture was the guys that used to go out and provide food for their family. That same group. Now I'm talking guys that really went out to provide food for their family. Like they might kill 6 deer, right?
Yeah. Right.
But they are going to feed them to their family. But they didn't have to buy a cow that year. They just
Right.
they'd pay for somebody's butcher bill or tag, and
Yeah.
they'd take those deer. We all know those guys that did that. Well, those guys, unfortunately, that demographic got swallowed up largely during the opioid crisis.
Really.
And that we saw them. I mean, we've lived here this whole time.
Yeah.
And those guys then pawned guns or sold guns or just went down a dark road and just kind of got out of their roots.
Yeah.
And we got to get people living a little bit more in touch with that, with the earth side of things. I think not to sound like too much of a hippie, but
Well, right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying though. Is like you're starting to sound like a
you could
hippie.
get your same buzz
Yeah.
off of just living off the land if you want to. Instead,
Right.
if you're chasing something, you ought to go try chasing.
Right.
Some good feelings out there outside.
Yeah,
That's why we do. I mean,
absolutely.
I can tell you about that. I mean, how happy are we? We've talked about it 1,000 times. Whenever we're out there in the daggone woods, chasing death, but we're outside. And I mean, we could die on any given day that we go out and do what we do.
It's no different than when I was running a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like, man, why are you running 50 miles on a trail?
He does ultra
Because
marathons.
Oh,
you
yeah.
used to. I'm a chubby guy now. Like, how can you do that? I'm like, dude, it's an adult playground.
Yeah.
I'm running around. I'm jumping over creeks, jumping in mud puddles.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than being outside
Your
and
phone's
smelling and smelling dirt, smelling leaves.
Well, it's interesting you say that too. Like,
honeysuckle, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they call that. They have a name for that in Japan. They call it forest bathing. It's therapeutic. It's
I
a
know that
therapeutic-
term.
Yeah.
Well, it's absolutely therapeutic.
Right.
Hey, you can go run that far and then show up at our cookout tonight. Yes, I'm invigorated because I've
right.
spent the day in nature. Like,
And there's some extensive studies like
Yeah.
kids who live near a park versus don't. There's depression in those who don't. And so that's what I'm saying is like, you're right. This is a gold mine here in Southern Ohio.
It's our playground.
Yeah.
I mean, from now until, November, we'll be out there every daggone weekend,
Yeah.
just outside soaking up as much of it as we can till our wives make us come back.
part of me loves to talk about it, but part of me is like, man, I sure hope like not too many people hear about it because
Absolutely.
I don't want it to get overpopulated.
Yeah, I'm
like
not-
this is my place. I tried to go away a long time ago,
Right.
and I realized it sucked. And when I got back here, I was like, oh my god, this is home.
Well, have you heard
Yeah.
the like trending term? It's like Ohio Riz. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I've not.
Oh,
But I bet I've been the flag bearer for like the last 15 years.
Guaranteed. Yeah. Like Ohio Riz is like the worst charisma that you can possibly have because it's Midwest. It's Midwest.
Good.
And exactly,
Yeah,
we're like
good.
stay out. Stay
Good.
out. Like,
yeah.
we don't
Well,
want you here.
look at what it did to Colorado.
Yeah, exactly.
Colorado used to be a just a abode out there, you know,
Right.
just lovely. Now it's just overpopulated.
Exactly.
Not so much overpopulated, but yeah.
I mean, we're headed to that. I would say, like, in a good way. Like, you know, there definitely needs to be some influx of people here. You know, young people.
we're going to have to have it
right.
in order to sustain.
But you're right. There's a balance. There's a yin and a yang, right? Like, we don't want to
Absolutely.
You know, like
I think we've got enough outdoors down here. Like, honestly, it's kind of like Colorado. Colorado's packed. Don't get me wrong. Them coffee shops.
Who's running this place? Turn the volume down on his microphone.
But Colorado's packed. Don't get me wrong. But you get outside, it's not. Like, you get up in
Yeah.
the trails. There's people that love the scenery,
Yeah.
but they just soon sit there at that coffee shop or whatever. They're not
Right.
really getting after it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I will argue a little bit against that because I was all the way out west in Oregon and I summited Mount Hood. That was like a big dream of mine is to get to the top of that mountain because, you know, I was in Portland and you just like, it like looms over you every day. And you're like, I want to get to the top of that.
I ran down Mount Hood once.
Oh, did you? Nice. Well,
Not all the way from the snowcat, but close.
yeah.
In Oregon?
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool to learn about you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went to the top, you know, did the thing. And I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. It was one of the, you know, most perfect days. Clear, no wind. Sun was rising because you start at like midnight, you know, because you got to have a hard snow to get up. And then we got to the top and it's like, it's so beautiful. We look around, there's like 30, 40 people. It's not isolated whatsoever.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's a little overrun. And, you know, the dose makes the poison. So it's like, we need some people, but not like too many people. Right? Like, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we have days like that. You know, there's days we run into a ton of people. There's days we don't see
Yeah.
a soul.
Yeah.
well, for sure. I mean, go to Ash Cave or whatever.
Oh
you know, on a
gosh,
busy day.
that's places just that's a little bit different,
Right.
you know. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can come down here in Homestead, I guess, and get your
Yeah.
fix. You know.
Oh,
Some-
yeah.
5 acres to a lot of people's like 5,000 to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, they're just not used to having that
yeah,
much green
exactly.
space.
That's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think, you know, people are moving south. Like, you see a lot of that investment and growth. And even down in West Virginia, there's a lot more money coming in. And so
Yeah,
people are developing.
I'm just so tired of these winters.
Yeah. I mean, I get you.
Dude, you blinked your eyes. It's 70 degrees out there today. It's
Yeah,
over.
I know,
over.
but man, that's a long
over.
winter,
It's
bud.
okay.
It's a long winter.
It's all right.
We haven't rode bikes, you and I, and you haven't been
It's
with
all
me
right.
since before October, since before November.
Well, there's an argument to that where,
We rode later than that. But
Not
anyway.
much.
I mean, you know, life, I actually really like that we have seasons on the East Coast or whatever, because there's a time to sit in and, you know, get your wood fire going, read a book, right?
Yeah.
And there's a time to just go hard and, you know, bike and hike and climb. And so,
Yeah. And I know that if you did it 12 months a year, it would probably get old.
yeah.
You know, I
mean,
kind of like having this window of like, oh man, hey, I got to go this time, you know, during these times.
right. Well, and I just think even in a very naturalistic point of view, you know, everything's cyclical. You know, your heart rate is a rhythm, right? And, you know, ovulation cycles. And I just, I don't envy those other states that don't have that, where it's either like brutally hot or it's
Brutally cold.
Yeah.
Does that affect the circadian
Yeah.
rhythm?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
And then like various things like the sun sets earlier, right, in the winter, and you should be sleeping more. You know, it's like the bears hibernate. We should be hibernating.
Yep.
You know, we should be just like eating our bonbons and like sitting by the fire. And then maybe that's the time in which you contemplate, you know, your future.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'm saying, yeah, it's very much like the circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
Your cortisol's up in the morning.
Yep.
You're highly productive, and then you sleep and you do your thing. And so I think winter is a very important, like, that's where you heal. That's where you recoup. And
Could be where you go crazy too.
well, that's true. Yeah, the cabin fever, man. Yeah, I get that.
I get that, man.
I know.
I had to take a vitamin D pill all
Well,
winter.
you should. You should. I mean,
I think it has something to do with my red hair. There's studies on this.
well, absolutely. But actually, you would be more.
I would be more vitamin D.
You would be sensitive to, and you would like because you're so sensitive to the light.
Yeah, so
versus-
I would. I don't know if that means I need more.
you need less, but I would say, in general, like you're maybe more sensitive to the light and the coming and going because you don't have all that melanin to block it out. It's like your cells, your integumentary cells. your skin cells are very hypersensitive. So it's used to it, like when it gets exposure, it's like high intensity exposure.
Oh, like today?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Different.
Right. And you what you don't know is, and this is really biochemical stuff, but when UV light hits a molecule, it breaks it into two parts. One, it's melanin. It produces your tan. The other one binds the mu opiate receptor. And so it makes you happy. That's why you get seasonal depressive.
Is that what dopamine is?
Nope, it's a little different. That's dopamine binds dopamine receptors. Opiates bind opiate receptors. And there are a few things that will bind that. Opiates, like heroin. If you stand in the sun, that will create a molecule that will bind it. Alcohol. And so like all these things bind the mu opiate receptor, make you happy, make you a little happier.
Okay. That's your happy.
Yeah.
That's your happy.
So I'm saying when you're in the summer and you're getting all that sun, there's no melanin to sort of like block that. You're producing melanin because you'll get a little tan.
And I stay happy as all get out all summer.
Yeah.
Like all summer. I never get seasonal depression until.
Giddy.
Yeah, I
You
do.
are giddy.
Right. I am, ain't I?
Giddy.
In the summer, I just get plumb jacked up.
Yeah.
And then in the wintertime, I just want to just.
Yeah. You're subject to highs and lows because, like someone who's African American descent would have a lot of melanin. They'd block a lot of sunlight, so they wouldn't necessarily see the ups and downs like you would.
Yeah.
And my dermatology mentor said, he's like, that's how people get addicted to tanning, is that they just feel the opiate,
The UV light.
Right.
Yep.
But you got to be careful because, you're also more susceptible to the development of mutations and cancer.
Melanoma's
Right.
splitting off there.
Exactly.
So for all that good I'm feeling, I'm also having a chance of cancer.
The real trick to that is the dose makes the poison. And so the gradual increase of sun is safe.
Yeah.
It's when Ginger's like you go to the beach and just spend hours and get burnt.
Oh, I'm taking my family this year in April. I said, there's no way I'm going there towards the equator in like August or July.
Yeah.
I said, you're nuts. I said, the only time I'm going near the equator is in the spring.
Not built for it.
No,
Yeah,
my whole family, you can see through my son. I mean, my son's the color of that ring light.
Yeah. I mean, the like advice I'd give you is like get as much sun as you can before you go, and then you can kind of
How? What would be your advice on how to do that?
I mean, if you can't literally just get sunlight because you're working indoors, which most of us
I work indoors. Yeah,
exactly. Is you can go to tanning bed.
Just don't do it a lot. Just
do like 2 minutes and 3.
Hey,
and then
skin it
4.
and wash those cars you got out there on the farm.
Oh, I will, but I mean, we're just now. Today's the first day that it hasn't froze,
Right, exactly.
and it was 27 this morning.
It was still cold as hell.
That's
right.
So it's like, hey, let's not get excited here.
Yeah,
I'll go
exactly.
shirtless. Don't you worry about that.
But it just you got to prepare. It's just like anything. Like if you went from 0 and you just took a whole big, you stored a bunch of Coke, you're gonna go crazy, right? I'm
Allegedly, yeah.
Well, yeah, no one knows about that here. But I'm saying, like for example, it's a sad truth, but like the overdoses happen when people have quit for a very long time and then they relapse. They do the same dose that they're used to, and that's what kills them. And so what I'm saying is the dose is really the poison.
Yeah.
So if you go from all winter I'm indoors and then you go outdoors and you get a lot of sunlight, you will get melanoma, and that's like no doubt because the UV radiation is, it's
No tolerance to
right.
it. No blockers.
Exactly.
So Alex, do you prescribe walking outdoors to people?
Yeah, I do. I prescribe different
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah, different things like whether it be meditation or get outdoors or, like I said, housectomies. It can be very wide things.
You do that.
Yeah. It's
Really,
definitely-
the true
That's
definition of
excellent.
general practice.
yeah. I mean, and it's interesting about like prescription.
Well,
right?
I mean, from a wellness perspective, like that's what I'm hearing. Like, practice wellness, right?
yeah, and it's a lot of times when they come to me, it's like they're in a moment of desperation, and I have to fix something little, right? Like I'm anorexic because I've been just like eating ibuprofen every day for
Sure.
and that hurts the stomach, and I'm like, okay, get off the ibuprofen. Let's start with some turmeric. Let's do something different so that
Yeah.
your stomach can tolerate food, and like that maybe like I get a little I'm like, I'm a wizard. Like, you're better. You're eating now. Then that's when I can captivate him. And then let's dig deeper. Let's do the things that like, what led to this? Okay, pain. That's why you're eating ibuprofen every day. Where's the pain coming from? And that can be a lot different, emotional, the psychosomatic, right? Maybe you're stressed. Maybe you are eating inappropriately, whatever. Like, let's address that. So, I mean, my process can be, here's a quick fix because that's what we're used to. And then let's work on the deeper stuff. But certainly, I'm a lot of times it's, you need to socialize, you need to
get outside and take a walk.
Exactly.
I can't tell you the number of times I've just looked at a friend who's struggling, like, man, if you just get outside and take a walk on a sunny day, you would be amazed.
Right.
Whether it's 100 yards or 100 minutes, right? Like, go feel that.
And embrace it.
Yeah.
And if you got to let it out, let it out.
Oh,
but just go out there and find yourself.
Well, the kids have a term for that nowadays. I don't know if you've heard this term. It's called touching grass. They're like, hey, you might need go touch grass. Like if you're like, if somebody's yelling at you, you're like, I think you need to touch grass.
Just ground out.
Exactly.
Just go ground.
Hey, you tell me to pound sand, I'm going to tell you to go touch grass.
There you go.
That could have several meanings. I'm in.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Dr. Alex, we've been in an hour and a half. Great job, episode number 2. By the way,
fun.
Great,
yeah, I love talking to you.
So, what I want to know is, now tell me no. We can edit this, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Are you virtual?
I'm pretty much virtual 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so they would find you at moonridgemedicine.com.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, and then they would set up a consultation basically because these virtually they would all essentially be consultations.
Yeah, I mean you it's very simple, landing page, book me now, whatever you want to, you can explore the website, but it's a very simple process to book me, and then I can appear on your phone or whatever in a matter of days. And that will allow me to like give you that hour.
And if you've got like your existing blood work,
absolutely
have that for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can definitely interpret that.
Yeah.
And actually in Ohio, if you don't have that blood work, I can order it. So
okay.
Yeah, it can be done. And surprisingly cheap. I actually ran some blood work for my buddy the other day. It was like $40. Yeah. And I mean, he's fully insured.
That's typically a $400.
Exactly.
Yeah,
visit.
Absolutely.
It was $40.
Wow.
So I was pretty impressed. I was like, yeah, you're paying how much for insurance?
Yeah.
So, it's just usually that's covered, and I'm happy to work with people who've got that covered, and so I can work with that.
And I mean, I assume maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you kind of make them aware of all these costs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I like about it is there's a lot of transparency.
Yeah, you ever notice whenever you go to a big doctor, like, you don't know, and then you get a bill, and then your insurance company gets a bill, and it's like, okay, they're going to take whoever's higher.
Right,
and,
absolutely. And there's a big story trending right now where the guy was
uninsured. On the phone.
Yeah,
did you hear that? I was
exactly.
going to, you haven't seen that, have you, on TikTok? Guy on the phone has a bill in his hand. He is talking with his insurance company. And he got a bill for like 600 and some, if I was not mistaken.
Something like that, yeah. 600
and some on his. And then he got another bill because he had insurance and his insurance only paid X amount of dollars of it. He got another bill for 1,100. And he was like, okay, well, I'll just pay this first one. Well, no, sir, you have insurance, so we have to charge you this amount. Well, no, it's okay. I don't have insurance. Well, now we already know. And like he just went back and forth, and they were literally like charging him double.
Yep.
Because he had insurance. And I mean, I left the insurance field. I can say this, like I know that business well.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I sold it for 20 years. I'm telling you, it's shisty like that.
Yeah.
Like, there's backdoor deals, and there's so many hands in that cookie jar that they're all trying to pad that it's sickening. It really is. I mean, that was one of the driving factors in me leaving. It was
really?
Like, I mean, you just get to the point where it's like, we're going to charge you guys this rate because you live where you do, and your body shops charge this, and houses burn in this amount of time, and it's like, so, and those are the reason I get the rating system. I'm not complaining about that, but I'm saying that can be bought.
Right.
Yeah.
that rating system can be bought.
Yep.
Well, and in his case too, I think because he was in California, there were like laws in place to lower it for insurance or uninsured personnel and stuff.
Incentives.
Right. And so I think, I'm insured. I think it's fine for a catastrophe.
It's bankruptcy insurance.
Right.
I tell everybody
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
It's not a way of life. It's bankruptcy
Exactly.
insurance.
So just like one of the greatest analogies is that, if you get car insurance, it's going to save you in a wreck. It's not going to give you an oil change. It's not going to give you new tires. That's where I live, is right there. Keeping your car
You're
healthy.
the PM. You're
Right.
the preventative maintenance.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I invite anybody who wants to like really seriously dig down, not those who are looking for a quick fix, It's just like, that's not my realm. If you want some drugs, you want to go hard, go for the conventional stuff. But, and we have our fun, we got cannabis, we got psilocybin, we got, it's not like all work, but at the same time that a lot of it is some of that instant gratification, but a lot of that long-term, like we really want sustainable, like you were saying, dietary sustained health.
Yep.
And it's like, well, how do we address that? Well, I got to know you. So let's spend a whole hour
It's
together.
Foundational. It's a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So my patients, I don't got to really worry about my patients because they're like, you're a good guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to worry about them coming at me.
Yeah.
Because they know I'm trying my hardest. I'm doing my best. And that's what I can guarantee is that, like, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try everything I can. You might not like all the words that I have to say, right? Like,
but you're getting the truth.
Yeah. Truth to power or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So,
It goes a long way.
Yeah.
And the genuineness of this guy.
Oh, I wouldn't have had you back on the show for the second time if I thought you were a goof the first.
Well, I appreciate you having me back. And it's been many years. Like, we've been through a lot, like in a sense, like as a world and as an area, like down here.
You were right after COVID. You were like one of the first ones back.
And what about the book? Do we need to talk about the book one more time?
Well, I should plug the book.
Plug the book.
I mean, it was a pandemic project, and I was like, let's get this out there, and I'm really excited about revamping it, making it for 2025, and hopefully it's a very simple book. It's got some recipes, but it's got a lot of nutritional advice and things that I would really want everybody to learn.
Good.
I love it.
All right. MoonRidgeMedicine.com. Dr. Alex Arrington. Look him up. Facebook, Google, AI, ChatGPT, Instagram. Look him up. Moon Ridge, just like the moon, ridgemedicine.com.